You know what's crazy? Most people think you need a huge backyard to grow your own vegetables, but I'm about to show you 12 vegetables that'll thrive in a container on your balcony and produce more food than you can eat. With good soil, drainage, and the right crops, even a couple of pots can supply fresh produce all season. Stick around because all 12 literally pay for themselves in one season, and that bonus tip at the end? Game changer. Here are 12 vegetables that thrive in containers in small spaces. Number 12, radishes. Radishes are perfect for container growing because they mature quickly and don't require deep soil. If you've ever wanted a crop that gives fast results while other vegetables are still waking up, radishes deliver. A shallow pot or window box works fine since their roots stay close to the surface. Loose soil is important because radishes expand into crisp bulbs only when they aren't fighting packed dirt. Sow seeds directly into the soil and space them evenly so each root has room to form. It's tempting to sprinkle too many at once, but crowding leads to thin roots and oversized leaves instead of the solid bulbs you're aiming for. Water consistently to keep the soil lightly moist. Radishes can turn woody or overly spicy if they dry out for long stretches. Sunlight helps them grow quickly, but they don't need intense heat. Cooler weather actually improves texture and flavor, which makes them a great choice for early spring or fall planting. Because they grow so fast, stagger planting in small batches rather than filling the entire pot at once. This keeps fresh radishes coming steadily instead of all at once. Harvest as soon as roots swell. Leaving them too long turns them tough and hollow. The greens are edible too and can be added to soups, sautéed or blended into pesto. When a batch finishes, clear out the soil surface, loosen it slightly and replant immediately. Number 11, Bok Choy and Pak Choi. Bok Choy thrives in containers because it grows compactly and matures quickly, making it ideal for tight balconies or small patios. If you've ever wished for a vegetable that doesn't sprawl or demand heavy maintenance, this one fits perfectly. A medium container works well, especially one with good drainage and enough width for plants to sit side by side. Plant seeds directly in the pot or start with small seedlings spaced far enough apart to develop full heads. Steady moisture keeps the leaves crisp and tender, so aim for soil that stays hydrated rather than drying out completely between waterings. These plants prefer cooler temperatures and don't need relentless sun. Morning light with afternoon shade helps prevent bolting, especially as temperatures rise. Harvesting depends on how you plan to use it. Cut entire heads to clear the container and replant for another round, or pick outer leaves as needed so the center continues to grow. Container-grown Bok Choy tends to stay cleaner and free of soil splash, which makes harvests easier to wash and cook right away. If pests show up, they're easier to manage since the plant is isolated. Light netting or hand removal often solves the problem without chemicals. Because Bok Choy grows fast, you can plant again throughout the season rather than relying on a single harvest. Number 10, turnips. Turnips are one of those vegetables people overlook, but they're incredibly efficient in containers because both the roots and the greens are usable. If you've ever wanted a crop that gives a double harvest without taking up much space, turnips are worth growing. They don't need deep soil unless you're aiming for large roots. Most varieties form nicely even in medium-depth pots, as long as the soil stays loose and free of hard clumps. Sow seeds directly into the container rather than transplanting. Turnips establish best when their roots grow in place from day one. Scatter seeds lightly, cover with a thin layer of soil, and water gently. Once seedlings appear, thin them enough so each plant has room to form round, smooth roots. Skipping this step leads to crowded, misshapen turnips and mostly leaves instead of bulbs. Turnips prefer cooler weather and steady moisture. Dry spells can cause the roots to become tough or fibrous, while too much heat can make the flavor sharp. A shaded balcony or a spot with morning sun and afternoon shade is often ideal, especially in warm climates. Water frequently enough to keep soil evenly damp without turning it mushy. Harvesting is flexible. Pull roots when they're small and tender rather than waiting for them to grow oversized. Smaller turnips cook faster, taste sweeter, and don't need peeling. The greens are just as valuable and can be harvested lightly while the roots continue developing. Clip individual leaves from the outer edges so the plant keeps producing instead of stripping it bare. When the first batch finishes, refresh the soil surface and replant immediately. Turnips grow quickly and can cycle through multiple rounds in the same pot across a season. Number 9, squash. Squash takes up a lot of space in the ground, but a container lets it grow in a controlled spot while still producing plenty of food. The plant spreads outward naturally, so placing the pot where vines can hang over the sides keeps things neat and prevents it from swallowing walkways or other plants. A wide container gives the roots room to expand, and loose soil mixed with compost provides the nutrients needed for fast growth. Start by planting 2 seeds, then keep the strongest seedling once true leaves appear. Sunlight is non-negotiable. Squash thrives in full sun and grows best when soil stays consistently moist. Dry soil during flowering can lead to fewer fruits, so water steadily rather than in short, heavy bursts. A top layer of straw or leaves helps hold moisture and prevents heat stress during long hot spells. As the plant grows, rotate the pot if needed so vines spill in the direction you prefer instead of creeping into unwanted areas. That's one of the biggest advantages of container squash. It can be positioned rather than controlled. Pick squash when they are smaller and tender. Larger fruit signals the plant to slow down production, while regular harvesting keeps new squash forming. If pests show up, treatment is easier in containers because the plant is isolated rather than buried inside a crowded garden. By the middle of the season, a single container-grown squash plant can produce enough harvests for frequent meals without consuming the entire outdoor space. Number 8. Lettuce and leafy greens. If you've ever wanted quick harvests without waiting months, leafy greens are one of the easiest wins in container gardening. They grow fast, don't need deep soil, and thrive even in places where other vegetables struggle. A medium-sized pot, a wide bowl-style planter, or even a long window box gives greens more than enough room. Loose potting soil works best because it helps roots spread and pull in moisture evenly. Greens appreciate cooler temperatures and partial sun, which makes them perfect for shaded balconies or spots that only get morning light. Too much afternoon heat can cause bitterness, so placing containers where sunlight is gentler keeps the leaves tender. Regular watering is important because shallow roots dry out quickly. Instead of soaking the pot all at once, aim for steady moisture that keeps the soil consistently damp. If pests appear, it's easier to remove them because every leaf is within reach. And if one pot starts declining, others keep producing. A few containers are enough to supply salads, sandwich greens, or cooked greens throughout the season. Container greens are steady providers, especially for small households that want fresh food without committing space to large plants. Number 7. Peas. Peas are a great option when space is limited because they grow upward instead of outward. A simple trellis, railing, or string support is all they need to climb. This keeps the footprint small while producing long pods that are easy to pick. If you're working with a narrow balcony or a patio corner, peas can give noticeable harvests without taking up the whole space. A pot that's wider than it is deep works well, and peas don't need rich soil to thrive. They grow best in cool weather, especially early spring or fall. If your growing season runs hot, placing the container where it gets morning sun and afternoon shade helps the plant stay productive longer. Water consistently, but avoid heavy, soggy soil since peas dislike sitting in wet conditions. Start peas from seed rather than transplants. They sprout quickly and adapt better to their container when started in place. As soon as tendrils appear, guide them toward the trellis or support so the plant climbs rather than sprawling. Once flowering begins, steady watering helps pods fill out fully instead of drying up early. Peas can be harvested young and crisp, or left to mature for a sweeter flavor. If picked regularly, the plant continues producing instead of shutting down early. Many people save that soil for leafy greens afterwards since peas leave behind nutrients that benefit the next crop. For small outdoor areas, peas offer high output for minimal square footage and add fresh, sweet harvests right at arm's reach. Number 6. Sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes might look like a crop that needs a whole field, but they adapt extremely well to containers as long as they have room to stretch downward. Instead of spreading roots across a large bed, they form clusters in loose soil, and the vines can trail neatly over the pot's edges. If your space is tight, this makes them surprisingly easy to manage. A deep container works best. The goal is to give the roots room to expand without hitting a hard barrier too quickly. Loose potting mix blended with compost helps the roots form smooth, well-shaped potatoes rather than twisted or stunted ones. If you've ever dealt with compact soil that turns sweet potatoes into knots, growing in containers avoids that completely. Start with slips rather than raw store-bought potatoes. Place them evenly across the surface and let vines spill downward as they grow. Full sun helps the plant store energy in the roots, so keep the container where it receives steady, direct light. Water deeply but not constantly. These plants prefer soil that drains well and dries slightly between waterings rather than sitting wet all day. The vines may look decorative, but they're also edible. Young leaves can be harvested lightly through the season for cooking, as long as you don't strip the plant bare. When the vines begin yellowing towards the end of the season, that's a natural sign the potatoes are nearly ready. Harvesting from containers is simple. Just tip the soil into a tray or a wheelbarrow and pull out each potato without digging or damaging them. Number 5. Carrots. Carrots become much easier to grow when they're planted in containers because the soil stays loose from the start. In the ground, stones and hard patches can twist roots or stop them from growing straight. In pots, that problem disappears. If you've ever pulled a crooked carrot, container soil fixes that instantly. Use a container that is deep enough for the variety you choose. Short and round carrot types grow well in shallower pots, while longer carrots need deeper containers so roots can extend fully. Fill the pot with soft, airy soil that drains quickly. Avoid heavy compost layers or thick fertilizer early on, since carrots expand best when the soil is simple rather than overly rich. Scatter seeds lightly across the top rather than burying them deeply. Once seedlings appear, thin them so each plant has enough room. Crowded carrots become thin and tangled, so leaving space early makes a noticeable difference later. Carrots enjoy steady moisture. Dry soil can cause cracked roots or stalled growth, so keeping the soil evenly damp helps them develop cleanly. Place the pot where it receives full sun, especially during the early growth stage when roots begin forming. Harvesting is easy. Pull a test carrot once the tops look thick and healthy. If it looks small, give the rest more time. Containers make harvesting simple because there's no need to dig through dense garden beds. Just loosen soil with your hands and lift roots out cleanly. Number 4. Onions. Onions are surprisingly efficient in containers because they don't demand much root space and can be grown densely without losing quality. If you've ever felt like full garden beds get wasted on slow-growing vegetables, onions solve that problem. A single wide pot can hold dozens of plants, and they don't compete heavily as long as the soil stays loose and well drained. Start with sets or transplants rather than seeds if you want quicker results. Press each bulb into the soil so just the tip shows above the surface. Give each one enough space to swell later on, especially if you're growing full-sized bulbs rather than green onions. If you're mainly growing them for greens, spacing can be tighter and harvests come much sooner. Place the container somewhere sunny. Onions need steady light to form large bulbs. Water consistently so the soil stays moist but never muddy. When bulbs begin to enlarge, brush back excess soil so their tops are slightly exposed. This helps them cure properly later. If the tops flop over near the end of the season, that's a natural sign they're finishing up. One benefit of container onions is layered harvesting. Pull some early as scallions, leave others to mature, and let a few stay even longer for storage bulbs. The pot keeps everything organized instead of scattering onions across the yard. At the end of the season, harvest, trim, and let bulbs dry in a shaded place with good airflow. Number 3. Garlic. Garlic performs exceptionally well in containers, especially if you're short on space or dealing with poor soil. Its growth is straightforward, and a single pot can yield a year's supply for many households. If you've ever struggled with soil-borne pests or weeds choking garlic outdoors, containers fix that issue completely. Plant individual cloves in fall or early winter, pointed end up, spacing them so each clove has room to form a full bulb. A container at least 12 inches deep gives roots enough space to anchor and store energy. Use loose soil and avoid crowding. Garlic needs airflow below the surface just as much as above it. Keep the pot somewhere sunny and water lightly but consistently. Garlic doesn't like soggy soil, so let the top layer dry before watering again. During winter, the plant focuses on root growth. When spring arrives, green shoots appear and begin storing energy in the bulb beneath. Container garlic is easy to monitor. If leaves show stress, you can adjust water or nutrients without affecting an entire garden bed. In late spring or early summer, remove any flower stalks that appear. This keeps energy going into the bulb rather than seeds. When lower leaves turn brown and dry, stop watering and let the bulbs cure in the soil for a few days before harvesting. Lift bulbs gently, brush off excess soil, and cure them in a shaded, ventilated space. Once dried, they store for months. The simplicity and payoff make garlic one of the most practical container crops for small spaces. Number 2. Swiss chard. Swiss chard is a great choice for small spaces because it grows tall rather than wide and keeps producing new leaves over a long season. If you've ever wished for a leafy vegetable that doesn't bolt quickly like lettuce, chard fills that gap perfectly. A medium pot is enough, and the plant adapts well to both full sun and light shade, which makes it useful for balconies or patios where light shifts throughout the day. Use loose soil and start with a handful of seeds scattered across the surface. Once seedlings appear, thin them so each plant has enough room to form strong stems. Water regularly to keep the soil moist but not soggy. Chard grows best when soil stays consistently damp, especially during hot weather, since dry spells can make the leaves tough. The leaves can be harvested young for salads or allowed to grow large for cooking. Use sharp scissors to cut outer leaves first and leave the center intact so the plant keeps producing. Containers make this easier because the leaves stay clean and are less likely to collect soil splash after rain or watering. If colors are appealing, choose rainbow mixes for bright stems that bring a decorative touch to small spaces. With steady harvesting, a single pot can provide fresh greens for months without needing replacement. Number 1. Kale. Kale thrives in containers because it doesn't need deep soil and grows well in cooler temperatures. If full sun crops struggle in your space or you're growing during colder months, kale keeps producing when other plants slow down. A medium-sized pot works well, especially one that allows the roots to spread outward rather than downward. Start with seedlings or seeds spaced apart so leaves have room to expand. Loose potting soil helps keep growth steady, and regular watering prevents leaves from turning bitter. Kale prefers consistent moisture rather than long dry gaps followed by heavy soaking. Place the container where it receives sun for part of the day, but it doesn't need intense heat to thrive. As the plant grows, remove lower leaves first and continue harvesting upward. This creates a tall stem with a crown of fresh growth at the top, saving space and encouraging new leaves. Containers allow easy access for picking, and the plant stays cleaner and less vulnerable to pests than when grown in ground soil. Kale can last for many months and may continue through winter and mild climates. When temperatures rise, provide a bit of afternoon shade to keep leaves tender. If pests like caterpillars show up, they're easier to spot and remove because the plant is contained in a single pot. Which of these vegetables would you grow in your container? Let us know in the comments below. If you learned something new today, make sure to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.